Hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. I'm Mark Francis, once again your host for today. And here we are coming up in the Thanksgiving season, and I just felt like it'd be fun to have a chat with a family who I've known for a while and just talk about what God is doing in our world and our lives. So I have Art and Mary Cox with us here today. How are you guys?
They're doing fine.
Doing fine. Yeah, so we are upcoming in this holiday season, and it's just neat to, once again, just hear stories of what God is doing in your world, in your life, and it might spur on and encourage some thoughts in our own minds of, where is God in my world and in my family and my life today? So thanks for being willing to come and share, and we want to get to know you. So I'm going to fire away with some open-ended questions, and you guys can fight about who's going to answer them. So how did you guys meet? Where did you meet?
At the University of Tennessee.
Yeah.
This is my University of Tennessee Part 3 experience.
Uh-huh.
I won't go into that, but I had just gotten back from the Army, and so I was going back to school and met her. My roommate actually introduced us. And that was it. As soon as I met her, that was it. It really was. Sometimes I just have this feeling from God. It's like, okay, you're done messing around here. Okay. And Fortunately, oddly enough, I had the wisdom to recognize that.
So that's his version of the story. What's yours, Mary?
Well, I transferred to the University of Tennessee from the University of Evansville in Indiana, where I was a music major. And my cousin had actually talked me into just doing a summer semester to just kind of get some basic courses out of the way, and so I was only there for the summer, and then I was going to go back to the University of Evansville, and I had gone to the Christian Student Center on campus, and was kind of hanging out there during the afternoons, and one day in walked Art, and we
had talked briefly on the phone a couple of days before.
That's true. That's true. His roommate knew one of my roommates and called, and so somehow I ended up on the phone with his roommate, and then his roommate was like, "Here, talk to my roommate," and it was one of those where I was like,
Hi.
No, hi.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So then your plan
35 years ago.
Right. So your plan of only being there for a short time, did that then change? Did you stay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
That changed.
And so
I transferred, and that fall I started going to UT.
So then how soon after were you guys engaged and married from that moment in time?
It was about a year, maybe a year and a half before we were engaged, and
It was probably about a year and a half. Because I didn't want to get engaged until I was almost done with all of my classes. Because I was getting ready to graduate, and I didn't want that to be a distraction. So as soon as I finished my final project, I think it was that day. You didn't know.
no, I didn't.
But it was very close to my final project because,
And your degree was in what?
Communications.
Art? Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
advertising, but communications.
Yeah. So you mentioned Christian Student Center. Does that imply that you guys knew the Lord before you guys met?
Yes.
Tell me each of your stories of how you came to faith and kind of that journey for you.
I'll go first.
Okay. I mean,
My parents, I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents were always very, very godly examples. I was nominally, it was one of those, I was a fairly good kid, but I think I was probably in about 7th grade or so. I was with our youth group, and we were touring. We lived in Florida, so it's not like when I say we're touring Florida, it wasn't like, wow, you're touring Florida. It was we went to
It's
these
your home stomping grounds, right?
Right, yeah. It was these small churches.
they were going to churches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them had air conditioning, some of them didn't. Hardly romantic. But the last day that we were there, we'd gone to Orlando, and we were all having like a devotional in the end, and it was a very spiritual time. And I realized, I never actually invited Christ into my life. I've known I should. I've known he's there. I know who he is. but I never invited him. So it was then that I invited him. I couldn't tell you the day, but it was in 1977. I would love to say there was this big spiritual change in me. There wasn't. But I did know who he was, and I did know that he was in my life. And it was a gradual, through the years, I would grow closer. I wish that I could say that it was, I was a better follower during the high school, college years, but that was my journey.
But it's still neat to know that, okay, here's a distinct time and place and space where you were able to say, okay, yeah, there was my moment of faith, like right then and there. And you're right, there's no instant change for everyone.
No.
Not usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my journey. That was what God had for me.
Yeah. How about you, Mary?
My mom was very godly. My dad was not really. And I grew up in a denomination that was very legalistic. And so I was a pretty obedient kid, didn't stir the water too much. I was baptized at 11, but my understanding was that was my, it was a denomination that taught that baptism was the point of salvation. So fast forward, in high school, I had questions with that denomination that really couldn't be answered by anyone that I was, attending church with. And then when I met Art, and his family had never, his different denominations. But
I'm going to step in. We met. I was going to this denomination. I sort of accidentally started going there.
He accidentally went to the student center that I was going to.
Yeah. So it was. I didn't grow up in that denomination, but I just ended up there, and that's.
And that's how
I ended up being there when we met.
Yeah. But so we had gotten married and moved to Florida, and we actually had our first child, Marshall, and we were not really, it's not like we said, let's look for a Southern Baptist church. It just happened to be that that's the one that we went to, and there were some real turning points when we were attending there. Met some really faithful people who encouraged us in our walk. And one Sunday I came home from church and I was like, I don't think I've ever actually put my entire trust, my entire faith, my entire hope for my eternal security on Christ. And so I told Art, and he said, well, now's a good time.
Sure. Why wait?
So he and I prayed together, and shortly afterwards, Art actually baptized me.
Cool.
There. Yeah.
So let's just talk about family real quick, because you mentioned your firstborn, Marshall, was born in Florida. I know you guys have a large family. So talk about how many children you have, and how did those conversations go along the way of a husband and wife, of like, how big is our family going to get?
Well, that's kind of funny, because before we had any kids, I wanted to have a boy. Ideally, and it's like you really have any control over this.
Filling out his
my wish list.
The wish list. Yep.
Yeah. But I wanted to have a boy, and I wanted to have another boy close to that age, so they could be close brothers. I'm really close to my brother, and that's one of my best relationships. And I wanted that for our sons. And I wanted a girl, and I wanted her to have a sister. And I'm like, that's 4 kids. I don't think I want 4 kids. But this church that Mary and I were going to, one of our best friends, he was our Sunday school teacher. He was
and it's not like there were a whole bunch of large families.
Right, there weren't.
Yeah,
there weren't, maybe 2 or 3, maybe
if that.
Yeah, but he said that he was the oldest of 11, and he got us to thinking. Actually, individually, we weren't even really talking about this. That God would release that decision up to him. For us, like I said, we came to it individually. He was saying, why do we trust God with all of these other things? Why don't we trust Him with our family? And I got to thinking, I really don't have a good answer. I can make up one, but I just don't have a good answer. And then Mary came to me, I don't know, maybe a couple months
Well,
later.
I mean, this had been in the back of my mind for several years.
What was on your checklist? As a little girl growing up, how many?
I'm the youngest of 5,
Uh-huh.
and there's 12 years between me and my closest sibling. So my siblings are almost like another set of parents.
Yeah.
So I almost grew up like an only child, but I had lots of nieces and nephews. I don't know how many cousins I have because both of my parents came from large families.
I have
so
one.
He has one first cousin, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, so family reunions were like a big whoo, So large families did not scare me. I mean, I didn't even really think about it, But when we first moved to Florida, the small Christian school that I was teaching at and he was working at in their publications department, there were a lot of homeschoolers that were involved in that school. Like there were homeschoolers that had taken a couple of years off and they would come and go to school there. But we were introduced to the idea of homeschooling there. But I remember seeing this magazine, and it was this family from Texas, and I think there were 10 children, and they were the most beautiful family I think I had ever seen. They were all dressed alike. Had these square jaw. I mean, they were just beautiful.
Magazine ready, right?
They were
Right,
magazine
ours,
ready.
yeah, high bar. I don't think ours will ever get
Yeah,
there. We have a beautiful family.
we've never taken a family picture like that. But it was just so beautiful, and I remember thinking, do people actually still do that? I didn't know people still had 10 children.
Yeah.
So, but it started there, and then it was just like a conversation here and a Bible verse there, and at some point, and I think probably everybody has this experience in various areas, or maybe one or two, but God just keeps like tapping you on the shoulder about something, and it gets to the point where you're like, okay, I can't ignore this anymore. So I went to Art and I said with true fear, I think God wants us to trust Him for the size of our family.
Yeah, I remember the conversation.
And I really, really thought that what was going to happen was He was going to say, "You have lost your mind," and I could then say, "Well, I submit to my husband."
Yeah, right. But then what did he
And
say?
he said, "I think you're right," and I was like, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
I don't think that did not go the way I thought it was going to.
But it's cool to see how God works with each of you separately and brings you together to have His plan, His will in your life, trusting Him through that process.
Yeah.
So how many children do you have now? What's the age ranges?
11.
11
Laurel,
children.
Yeah, well, not my children anymore, but Laurel is 6, and I just turned 60.
And our oldest, Marshall, is
27.
28.
Yeah. Wow.
He's going to be 29 this year. So there's
Yeah.
a 22-year
And then if you count
range.
every 2 years, essentially, except for the twins.
So,
Well, there was 5 years between the last two.
Yeah.
but I mean, I have fond memories of you guys being here at FBC and going through child dedications, and
Yeah.
every other year, there you
Every
guys are,
other year.
right?
There
There
we
you guys are. So, what brought you to Winchester then? What brought you to town?
But I want to add one more thing with
Yeah.
Mary wants to write a book called, what is it? The Joshua and Caleb
The Joshua and Caleb effect.
Effect, yeah. Our oldest two, their middle names are Joshua and Caleb. And when we started considering having kids, it's like, do we really want to bring kids into this world? And we got to thinking about Joshua and Caleb, and they're like, God's promise to them, God gave them the land, and they said, well, yeah, why don't we take it? And everyone else is scared. And they said, no, we should go in and take it.
What's there to be afraid of?
Yeah, what's there to be afraid of? God's with us. Why are we worried? So that really gave us a lot of encouragement in doing that. And God has continually been faithful through the whole time. You know, there have been lean times, there have been better times, but continually faithful. You know.
And I also want to add that it's not it's not one of those things that we're like, well, everybody should have a large family. You know, I mean,
Right.
you know, we can
That's
only
what-
speak
yeah,
for
God
us.
calls
Yep.
us to do this.
Right.
And God calls other people to do other things that we can't do because of the way he is.
So, but the reason that we came to Winchester was because of employment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
In 2000, we've been in Florida for 7 years?
Yes.
Something like
We
that.
call it the year of Jubilee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
We didn't really like Florida. It was okay, but when we were on the beach, it was pretty. But
Sure.
you're inland and it's hot and anty and buggy and sandy and yeah, it wasn't me. I'm an Appalachian American.
So, job moves you to Winchester,
Right.
and how soon after do you find Fellowship Bible Church?
We stayed with the Gendas for a number of months.
Yeah.
We lived with
Biff
them
and
while we were
Barkenda.
while we were looking for a house, and they were coming here. So we started coming here, and this was in, like I said, 2000. But it was the old church, and we
The old
always
building.
Yep.
you know,
Where the nursery is now.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yep.
and we always got here late, and we would have to come in, and then we'd have to fight our way to the back.
Sit in the back where the
Right.
library was or is.
I don't know
now.
where to go.
It was
I can't-
really
Yes.
I
crowded.
can't place it now. It's like,
Yep.
and every week it was that, and I think sure we can get here on time, except we can't get here on time. It's just
So
we
it,
started
it was
going to
just
a
a little
smaller-
overwhelming because
Yeah.
it was like sardines. There were so many
3
people.
services on Sunday
Right,
mornings.
right.
Yeah.
So we started attending a smaller church, much smaller in Winchester. And lived
their whole youth
there-
group was like 10 people,
I don't think that.
and that was like K-12.
But so we went there for 4 years. But during those 4 years, we would come to we came to fellowship for a marriage class. We came to fellowship for generations
Yeah.
when generations was going on Wednesday nights, and there some other classes. And at some point, we were like, why don't we just go there all the time?
Yeah.
Well, the other church, it was so small they didn't offer anything except for Sunday mornings, and we actually did get a Bible study going just before Samuel was born. And then when it was done, it's like, okay, we can't do this. Can somebody else step in? And nobody did, and it was just kind of frustrating.
You see, you guys seem to be intentional in pursuing kind of community and within the church, and recognize at least what FBC was offering, whether, there's plenty of churches out there we could have found that, but God drew you here. It seemed like you were, again, seeking out that family-like community. Who you mentioned the Gendas, but what else happened in your all's lives where there was mentorship or discipleship from a parent standpoint? Is there any kind of time or place where you remember, man, yeah, because now you guys are at that age where you could be speaking into other younger parents' lives. Who were some of the older parents that were speaking to your lives along the way as you were having these children and raising a family and got beyond what I call the man-on-man defense concept? So what did that look like from your all's end of being involved in FBC from that standpoint?
Not long after we started going here, I can't even remember who I asked, but I asked if there was some older. Well, there was a mentorship program. I don't even know that it was an organized mentorship program, but I asked someone, and I can't remember who I asked. I said, could you ask Janet Newland if she would mentor me? And she graciously accepted. And so she and I met for over a year. We would meet at 5:00 on Tuesday morning or something like that in the library.
Yeah.
She encouraged me through a miscarriage, finding out I was expecting twins. There were some big, emotional upheavals going on right then, and those were very precious early morning meetings with her. So that was one time I really loved that. And there were other families that we just kind of hung out with, did life with, the McNutts.
Mm-hmm.
We were, the kids and I were involved in a homeschool kind of get-together thing with like the Mayos, and I can't even remember who else was there, but there there are several families that have been here for a very long time that now that all of our kids are a little bit older, I don't see them as much anymore, but they were very instrumental in encouraging us and helping us feel like we had family here.
Even at a church of this size, it seemed to be overwhelming to you at first, which is why you went to a smaller church, just to kind of say, okay, this is too much. What was that hurdle where you're like, okay, this is home now? What kind of pushed you over that edge to say, yeah, this is where we belong?
I joined the praise team. I hadn't played bass in years, but wanted to start again. So I found a bass and got started again, and that kind of drew me into the music community. And I felt more part of it then. We've tried to go to community groups, but that's never really clicked.
Yeah. Well, it's not that it hasn't really clicked. It's just the location.
Yeah.
Plus, our children.
Sure. There's a lot
to be there, and I mean, there are a lot of cogs on the gear that have never quite lined up.
And we had enough friends that we didn't feel like we needed to join.
I guess.
And you guys are being intentional, and you're finding that community
right.
in many different locations around the church. Just you mentioned a few minutes ago and used the word God's faithfulness, Art. So over those years, and Mary, you're saying there's ups and downs, and you just kind of alluded to some of those lows and some of those highs. Where specifically have you seen God work in your life of your family over the years? What stands out?
Well, I would say probably the biggest one was when I ended up losing my job about 10 years ago. And this was a job I was going to stay at. I was going to retire. I had good friends there. I was settled. I was, I mean, it had gotten kind of stale, but it was good enough that it was like I was happy there. So it kind of took me as a surprise. And suddenly I had to figure out what I was going to do. I had to figure out, are we going to stay here? Are we going to try to move somewhere? Decided to stay here because we were so involved at the church. I mean, that was really one of the big things that kept us here.
And this is the job that moved you to town.
Yeah.
Now is
Virginia.
Okay, to Virginia, and now you're without it.
Yeah. So I ended up, looking for, and I was also, and I hadn't kept up with, I was a graphic designer. I hadn't really kept up with the field, what was going on outside where I worked. And I hadn't really cross-trained into doing some other things that were happening. So suddenly I was ill-equipped, and I was having a real hard time finding anything. And actually have not found another design job since then. And I think that was God taking me away from who I thought I was. And took me on a really tough journey. It really was for 10 years, maybe almost 10 years. Painting metal roofs in the summer, working in a warehouse for months, 12-hour shifts. And it was hard. It was really hard.
And an opportunity with a family of your size to then say, God, what are you doing with this now?
Yeah.
To financially be like, okay, I've got mouths to feed and bills to pay and things happening, and this is going on.
We never missed a payment, and we never missed a meal, but boy, it was lean. It was really lean. One of the things, but people at Fellowship they were very, very supportive. In fact, there was it was a couple of Christmases, I think, that the Benevolence group, it's not a group, it's a ministry.
Program,
Sure.
Ministry. Yeah, they reached out to us, and we ended up having a Christmas a couple of years, largely due to them. It was a huge blessing. And looking back, I think it was nice of the elders to do that, showing love and support. But I think it was really more Christ showing support through them. Showing His love, saying, "I'm still with you. I'm still with you." I haven't abandoned you. You know.
So you got past that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys here to have a chat is because you're now on staff here at
Yeah.
Fellowship Bible Church. So walk us through what that journey and experience looked like, and it's been maybe a year now?
Almost a year.
Yeah, coming up on a year. So for those you didn't know, give us your job title and description, and what was God doing in your world leading you to that point?
The job title is technical director. About 4 years ago, and I'm going back to kind of work up to it. I'll try to do it quickly. But about 4 years ago, I had lost another job. It turned out it was seasonal. I was like, again? So Mary had been, we'd both been talking, you know, what should we be doing? You know, one of the things that was killing us was the mortgage payment, you know, because it's, you know, I don't remember how much it was, but it was a huge chunk of what little we were making. So we'd been thinking about this for a while, Mary more so, but we decided that we were just going to chuck it all and buy land, build a house, be mortgage free, go down to, and we found it in Shenandoah County, got 20 acres, beautiful. We're still working on the house, but I was not working. I was not going to work. We were going to try to develop our land and try to turn it into a business. And after, I guess, probably a couple of years, it wasn't really working. We were making some progress, but we realized this is not going to happen. So I ended up working at Martin's in the seafood meat department. You know, yay!
Yeah.
Go home smelling like shrimp every night.
Glamorous job.
Right? Yeah. But it was good, and God had me there for a purpose. I have no doubt that anything that I went through, God had me there. You know, even in the dark times, even when I was going through wandering away, going through dark times on my own, He was still there. I wasn't looking. I knew that I couldn't do that forever. But then I heard about this opening at Fellowship. I don't really remember where I heard about it. It might have been through an email or something. And actually, it wasn't even the technical director. It was something else. And I think I was playing that Sunday, and I asked Mike about it.
Mike Lukens,
yeah, Lukens, yeah.
Worship pastor. Yeah.
Right. And he mentioned the technical director. I said, I wasn't thinking about that one. So, but that got my mind on that. So I started looking at that, and I thought, I don't know. It's not really what my background is. I could do it, I think. I've got the aptitude for it, but it's not what I was looking for. But I mean, if this is where God's taking me, then this will work out. And through the whole process, the interviewing process, everything, I was thinking, God, if this is what you have for me, thank you. If not, that's fine. You know, keep taking me wherever you're taking me. And it worked out.
And technical director, you're behind the scenes in the sound booth.
Right, which is kind of where I like to be. I mean, bass players sit in the back and don't draw a lot of attention themselves. They want to be there. They want to be part of it. But so, yeah, and the technical director makes sure that the Sunday morning services don't have glitches, or at least have minimal glitches, and that everything goes smoothly. And as Rose puts it, there are no distractions to the congregation.
Yeah, Rose Locke, who does the production components of it. You're partnering with her and doing a lot of those behind-the-scenes things, plus more than just worship services. Yeah. There's a lot that goes on here at Fellowship during the course of the week that needs that touch, that attention. Well, it has been great to have you here on staff, and it's cool to see where God has led you guys as a family, and you here, Art, to be a part of the team. And, you know, I just want to ask one last big final question. I mean, as we approach this Thanksgiving season, what are you guys thankful for? You can go back and look at so many different things, but how do you as a family together celebrate Thanksgiving?
We try to find somebody to invite us over because we don't have a house.
There you go. So attention to all people watching and listening. There you go.
No, that's only temporary.
Yeah.
But
we're close, but
I just wanted to say that one of the things that is an unexpected blessing through the last 10 years that have been, you know, difficult.
Yeah.
Our children have seen God's faithfulness. And I've told them, if you never have a need, then you're missing an opportunity to see God provide for you in a very real way. And they have seen God provide, whether it was we were doing cleaning as a family there for a while. We cleaned your offices, you know. We've done, you know, we've had several endeavors as a family.
Yeah.
But they have seen whether it was our refrigerator was going out, and I was reminded of Bonhoeffer, not Bonhoeffer, the
Mueller.
The you know, how he would pray, not you know, he would just pray and things happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, the refrigerator's going out.
Yeah.
This is exciting, you know.
Yeah.
And literally God gave us 3 refrigerators in 2 days.
And to have the family and the kids see that trust and dependency, even as scary as it is, right? That's discipleship in action of raising children and displaying and modeling what that looks like.
Well, and you wouldn't, as a parent, every part of you is like, I don't want my children to have a need.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't want them to be without. But that is a disservice to them, because if you never have a need, you miss out on an opportunity to see God's faithfulness. So whether it's that, or like one time there was a special offering and I had $200 for grocery money in my wallet, and I thought, I'm supposed to give this. And then Rich Brito comes to me with an envelope and hands it to me, and there was $1,000 in the envelope. And I said, Rich, do you know what just happened?
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
But those are very, very tangible examples of how God has been so faithful.
It's just neat to hear and see. And it comes from an unexpected place of, you know, here we are saying, okay, what can we be thankful for? And you're saying, I'm thankful for the need. I'm thankful for the tough times.
Oh, who was it? There was a movie star, Roberto Benigni.
Roberto Benigni.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's an Italian actor, and he said that he is so thankful that his parents gave him the gift of poverty because he appreciates things so much more. And yeah, so what I'm thankful for, obviously my family, my wife, Mary especially, she's been the biggest blessing God's given me. And just through all of this, through whatever journey, highs and lows, especially the lows, we see him there, and we know we can trust him. You know, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll trust. But I mean, it's, as Mary said, there's an opportunity to say, okay, what does God have for us?
Yeah.
You know, this isn't about what I want. This isn't about me not getting what I want. This is about God receiving what God has for me. You know, and that's a tremendously a blessing. That's poor grammar there, but there you go.
But that's true. I mean, and so from a church standpoint, you know, we certainly like to circle the wagons and see how can we support one another. And even of a church this size, it's possible, you know, to hear those stories of how there has been the benevolence happening and the people who can care for you. I mean, I'd encourage each one watching and listening that there is that potential for you as well. You know, if you feel the need to bless others within the body, you can contact the church to do that. There's opportunities to give into the benevolence fund. And if you're one in need as well, I would say feel free to reach out. There's not a harm or just take the humility, I guess. I mean, is that the way to put it? And just say, we need support. We need help.
And it can be, you do have to look beyond the humility of it and recognize, you know, maybe God wants somebody else to work through us, work with us.
Yeah.
You know?
So you can go to fbcva.org/care, and that's just going to point you in all the different care ministries at the church, and just contact us that way. And I would just say that in this upcoming holiday season, find opportunities of how you can bless others around you in that way, whether it be prayer, support, or maybe it is financial. I mean, if you're in that need, again, reach out, because you don't know what God's going to do in those times. So Art and Mary, thank you so much for sharing. I know we just kind of scratched the surface, but it's neat to hear your story and your testimonies and what God is doing in you and through you and the family. And if you see a bunch of kids running around with you guys, just
They may be
count
us.
heads
They
and
might
see.
They might be the Andersons.
So there's plenty of other rival families now in the church that are up there with you. So it's cool to see how God has led you in that path as well.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to share.
Absolutely. And for all you guys watching and listening, just continue to connect with us as well. We want to hear from you. And if you are willing to share your story like the Coxes here, we'd love to have you on. Just reach out to us any way possible. But you can go to fbcva.org/podcast and you get a chance to see all the 3-4 different podcast opportunities where there's different episodes and different stories being shared. And you can just submit your story and submit your request there. Well, it is the Thanksgiving season is upon us, so we have much to be thankful for. And I will say we are certainly thankful for the need, and we know that God can fill that need in all ways. So until we chat again, let's let the Christ be the focus of our lives each and every day.